I'd like to introduce Peter Reali and Rich Hoffman from the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. Peter has a master's in electrical engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, and a long career in Silicon Valley as an electrical design engineer and manager in the telecom and IT sector. He's been involved with the SCU since early 2018 and has contributed to their most recent report, a forensic analysis of Navy Carrier Strike Group 11's encounter with an anomalous aerial vehicle. Rich Hoffman is an IT consultant and strategist with a BA in organizational communications from Wright State University. He currently works as an enterprise architect at Redstone Arsenal and the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. He has over 54 years of experience in the UFO topic, and he's held numerous related roles, including being a state director of MUFON. So Peter and Rich have both graciously joined us today to talk about the background, objectives, and achievements of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. So everyone, let's welcome both of them.
Well, I'll be glad to start it, and I'm going to share a screen here for a second. I've got a presentation that talks about how we got started as SCU and a little bit about us. So hang on one second as I shift over. And hopefully everybody can see that. Let me see. Let me increase the size here.
Yeah, that looks wonderful. And
okay.
Again, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be able to join you all.
And thanks for inviting us. Yeah.
So anyway, let me move to the next slide here. Basically, a little bit about SCU in terms of how we got started. First off, just to clarify that we got started early on, actually way before we formed as an organization. There were 5 of us, including Larry Cates, who is, by the way, on this call right now, and he's in the community. But myself, Larry Cates, Robert Powell, you had Morgan Bell, and you had a Carl Paulson got together in roughly around the 2013 timeframe to actually study a video that was released to us from the Homeland Security Department. It was actually a Customs and Border Patrol aircraft that was in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. And all of us had been, were members of MUFON and held different kinds of positions in that, but we all managed to come together from the standpoint of science. Robert Powell was the director of research. I was state director. In addition to that, I was also playing a deputy director of investigations at for the organization, as well as I got into a director role looking at strategic projects, which was basically about, doing technology pushes of technology, if you would, to the field for study. So anyway, bottom line is we got started with this case and spent about 1.5 years to almost close to 2 years studying the 3-minute and 54-second video that was handed to us. Each of us took different roles to write different parts of the paper. Larry did a great analysis, and he was our mathematician to be able to help us to do the study. We had a physicist, Carl Paulson, that was on board. Robert Powell comes out of the semiconductor industry area. Morgan Bell is working with environmental services and stuff like that. And then, of course, I worked in the IT department over for Army Material Command here at Redstone Arsenal. And so we decided to form a team, basically, and we called ourselves basically the Scientific Coalition for Ufology. We just came up with a SCU name for ourselves, if you would. And then we basically, after that period of time, we put together like a 177-page document on the video in terms of our findings, and then went from there to basically find out that MUFON wasn't thrilled about the fact that we didn't go through them, but we had signed a non-disclosure agreement saying that we weren't going to do that. They didn't want this to go through UFO channels, and so basically we had to keep it clear from them and do this separate. And anyway, bottom line was that we saw some changes in MUFON that we didn't like as an organization, and a lot of the scientific community actually left the organization. And we decided in roughly around 2016 to kind of like start an organization and make it more formalized. And so then by 2017, we got started as a scientific coalition for ufology. And later on in 2019, we decided to change our name to more of like the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. And that was a change to get away kind of, from that term UFOs, which always has a stigma associated with it. We chose to use UAP in the context of aerospace phenomena as opposed to the typical aerial phenomena. Because, I mean, you start to have to include the fact that these things are water, they traverse in water, they traverse in air, and then there are also some reports that of space kind of like anomalies being seen. So it covers the gamut. And if you look in the military world, aerospace actually means kind of like all three of those mediums. Anyway, so then we decided that we're going to be a 501c3 charitable organization, and we set that up, and we incorporated in the state of Florida on August 2nd, 2018. We're way over 125 members now. I think we're up at the last count was something like about 155 members. Most have advanced degrees from countless disciplines. We got all different kinds of things like scientists, engineers, ex-military, former military, law officers, and then a whole host of business professionals. And as you pointed out already, you've had a great number of us that have been on your on the APEC conference. We've had Detlef Hoyer is also a part of SCU. I don't even know if you knew him or not, but Kevin Knuth, Matthew Shadegas, Frank Milburn, and a number of others probably will be on or something like that. But we're all part of SCU and decided to go that route. Basically, our mission, just to give you and how we chose to look at this, is we were basically wanting to conduct and promote and encourage rigorous scientific examination of UAP. I mean, previously in my 57 years now of study of the UFOs or UAP phenomena, but it's been sorely lacking to have scientists really truly engage collectively on this subject. And so we wanted to be able to get a scientific approach dedicated solely to the phenomena and really looking at it and doing the right things, putting together, hypotheses, testing the hypotheses, looking at putting together papers, having those peer reviewed and getting them out there and then even published in, some sort of a journal. We also, obviously endeavored to use scientific principles, as I just got through saying, to study the phenomena. Then we also look at scientific analysis support, witness testimony and working with other scientific organizations and governments who are looking for the certitude of facts. We seek to share the credible data with the public, the government, and scientific institutions so we can further our understanding of the phenomena. And we're basically looking to be able to share our data. We want to be as transparent as possible. So if you take a look at, for example, at our website, the papers we put together, we publish them and put them on our site and let everybody take a look at them. So we're not about not sharing at all. And that's been a problem in the UFO community for a long, long time. Our goals are to basically establish a foundation of credible, objective scientific study. Also, we're partnering with a lot of different organizations. For example, UAPx we're partnered with. We're partnered with Center for UFO Studies, and we're partnered with also a number of others as well. So we're looking to sponsor different public networking environments. We have our own way of connecting out to those, and we publish a newsletter, as well as we've been engaged in having conversations like this one in scientific organizations. And so we're looking to be able to help promote the study of UAPs. Right now, the board of directors are, of course, myself, Robert Powell, Morgan Bell, Peter Reali, who's on the call here. You have Dr. Paul Kingsbury. You've got Larry Hancock, And then we have two people that are emeritus. Larry Cates, as I told you, is right now attending this conference, and Carl Paulson are both emeritus. Then we have, and this is outdated now, I'm sorry, I didn't get that changed. Jonathan Lace has just left us, and we now have Stephen Purcell, who's taken over the role of public relations officer. Steve Sharples is helping us out with senior IT program management. He helps with the website. And then we have a board of advisors, if you would. We got Sarah Little, who is our science advisor. Alejandro Rojas is doing media and PR work. We have a Dr. Joseph Donato, who is also our national security advisor. And this is incorrect. It's not doctor yet, but he's working on it. He's just about there getting his doctorship, and I made a mistake on that. But it's Josh Pearson. He's our intelligence security advisor. So we're actually trying to reach out at the same time into the intelligence world, if you would, and build that relationship between the two of us, because we can get a direct benefit from having conversations with the IC. These are just a list of some of our current projects that we've got ongoing. There's a study called the Intention Study. And this is a group of people that are out, our members that are basically looking and analyzing the nuclear kind of cases, where you have UFOs that are hanging around production, storage, testing sites, and also, on naval ships and a whole host of other things. But we've initially started off with looking at like the production sites. And so we're focusing on right now the Hanford plant up in the state of Washington, to see if we can derive any kind of an intention about what is it that their interest is in that nuclear kind of case. And we obviously know about cases that are around the world, like Malmstrom, and where they actually deactivate missiles, or they accidentally activate missiles in Russia. But ultimately, we're trying to find out what is it they're doing, and can we derive any kind of intention. Another one of our studies that we're looking at is a USO UAP kind of like a geographic statistical study. Where are the preponderance of the cases with water sightings? Can we derive any kind of intelligence, if you would, from looking at that? We see that there's a correlation with off the coast of California. Certainly, if you look at the Tic Tac cases and all the other kind of cases going on, you can relatively make the deduction that that's a hot area. Puerto Rico in itself is also another one of those areas. We see a lot of cases. There are a tremendous amount of historical data in that, but we're looking at other areas. What about European countries and various other things that other parts of the world, that do they have the same kind of thing with water interaction? We're also looking at a UAP characterization study, looking at the best cases that we can to deduce what we can about their shapes, any of their maneuverability, colors, any other kind of characteristics, if you would, that we can see over history of some of the best cases that are out there. We're also looking at coronal mass ejections and solar activity. Is there any relationship between that and UFO or UAP reports? And so if you take a look at a good number of the Earth light phenomena that's like out there. Hang on, sorry. Earth light phenomena was kind of an unusual kind of like things that always get mixed up as being UAPs. There's a lot of times that it's believed that they're related to like solar activity. Then you have another one which is looking at UAPs and sounds. So we're trying to find out, well, mostly that they're silent. There are a lot of cases that actually have sounds, and typically you have people that report a buzzing or a humming or some other kind of like noise that's related to the actual objects. And so we're trying to look at that, as well as to deduce what tools can allow us to hear in other parts of the range of the spectrum, if you would, to be able to capture things that might not be heard by human. Then There's a psychological evaluation of UAP encounter study. There's a group of us that are actually looking into that as well to try to deduce. And we have, again, a number of people that are psychologists and have that kind of behavioral kind of science, if you would, that are wanting to explore some of that. We have UAP propulsion effects in the atmosphere and water. There's a tremendous number of books that are out there that detail, for example, you know, the USO cases and the interactions with water. Then you have like the book like by Paul Hill, where it's called Unconventional Flying Objects, where he talks about the fact that the water is boiling, if you would. There's a lot of steam coming off of the surface of the water, and then there's other cases when you don't see that, and some people have actually reported like almost like a snowfall, if you would, around the craft as it's coming out of the water. So ultimately, it's looking at that. You've got you're looking at we're also re-looking at the Delphos, Kansas case, which is, of course, a very famous case of soil being basically irradiated, if you would, and glowed for 4 days. Even the tree glowed, and it was witnessed by some of the people there. And the mother actually went out and touched her leg, and it became numb. And so there's a whole bunch of interesting things about that particular case that we're re-looking. So that gives you a little bit of a number of the projects that we're actually engaged in. Let me go to the next slide here. We've talked about some of our papers that we've had published. One was talking about the estimating flight characteristics of anomalous unidentified aerial vehicles in the 2004 Nimitz encounter. We had another paper that was published with the same kind of information. We have a forensic analysis of the Navy Strike Group 11's encounter with an anomalous aerial vehicle. Many of us took a look at that initial encounter when it happened, or when we became aware of it. Let me put it that way. Robert got us started. He actually talked with the Paco Chirichi. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not sure. But anyway, he had written an article in the Fighter Suite publication. And anyway, that kind of got us kicked off. And then we formed a team and started looking into it. I also mentioned that the 2013 Aguadilla, Puerto Rico case that we kind of took a look at, and we published that report. And then also Robert Powell was engaged when he was still with MUFON as the director of research. He helped publish a paper that was on the Stephenville Lights, a comprehensive radar and witness report study. So we've been actively trying to publish papers and working on a whole bunch of papers with the projects we're working on. Kind of list of the kinds of capabilities that we have, and we're trying to always expand that out. But everything from case investigations. A lot of us have got like oodles of years and decades doing case investigations, and how to do those properly. And then how do you look at photos and video and do that analysis of the videos? We've got a lot of experience around that, of course, doing that with the Nimitz case as well as the Aguadilla case and other cases, So it's not like we haven't been looking at video and photos. Isotope analysis we've done. In fact, that was on the Ubatuba case. We've done some of that work. We've worked with acoustic signatures analysis. And as you may or may not know, there's signatures management going on with many of these objects. Where they're able to do things like jamming and having electromagnetic effects that can shut down navigation systems or missiles or that type of thing. And then, of course, theoretical analysis of that. Some of the research we've done is chemical signatures, material science, and mathematical statistical modeling. And we're doing that with a number of the things that we're engaged in right now. And of course, we help with doing peer reviews for others as well. So if you have an interest in having us peer review that, we can do that. We're also putting out there the fact that we can work, with, of course, with government agencies, and we've had engagements trying to encourage, the whole Pentagon Task Force and a number of others to be able to start sharing data and getting that out to the scientific world, if you would. That needs to happen with people from academia or people like us, or just getting that out there, because that's going to help us to be able to get an understanding of this phenomena. And then we've been connecting with everything from people up on the Hill already. We're making sincere connections with a number of senators and various other people to encourage that they get this thing studied properly. We can support academic institutions and help them in their studies, because we've got this rich history of many of us being in the UFO phenomena for a long time. And then, of course, working with partners and research organizations as well. So we're hoping that we can, do that and in terms of making good, strong connections and really getting a great team of people that are willing to actually do the hard work to be able to study this phenomenon the right way. We have a variety of ways people are joining SU. We've got partners, of course, I mentioned. We have community access members. We formerly called them affiliates, but now they're community access members. And so there's a lot of people that are checking us out at first and then deciding whether they want to contribute in some form, like working on projects or in some capacity. And then we have senior contributing members. So if you are interested in joining us, I can show you, there's a contact page up on our website, or you can send an email to exploringscu@gmail.com. And that will allow you to get connected to us. I mentioned that we have partners. I mentioned the Center for UFO Studies, Jalen Heinig Center. A lot of us were working with a project called UFO Data. And that's basically, again, creating some sort of a technology capability that you can place where you can capture data from hotspots or something of that nature. We're working with UAPx, as I mentioned. In fact, by the way, Dr. Kevin Knuth was just promoted to vice president role of that organization. And we have NARCAP that we're also engaged with. NARCAP, of course, was Dick Haynes looking at a lot of the aircraft safety in relationship to UFOs or UAP. And he's done a tremendous amount of work. And Ted Rowe is picked up after Dick retired and is carrying on and doing a fabulous job. So anyway, that's it. We have a website that's out there called explorescu.org. We have a Facebook presence. We have a Twitter account that we've got. We're on LinkedIn. And as well as that, we're on YouTube. And we try to keep up with, again, informing people about the subject and our studies through these different means. In fact, let me switch gears for a second out of this, if you don't mind. I was going to show you on our website here. Hopefully you can all see that. It's the explorescu.org. We've got a number of things up there talking about who we are, mission services team. We've been keeping in the news and putting things up there to help people to keep informed. At the same time, you can go up there and look at About Us, and you can, again, learn more about our work and what we're doing. We're connected to a lot of people. We do collaboration work. We do the research.
Rich, your image is frozen. It didn't go up to the site, to the SCU site. It's just showing the last slide kind of bent as it's trying to change over. So.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. Rich, let me stop your screen share, and then you can share again. Okay.
Let's try that. Okay, I apologize. Let me share the screen again. And that's just that wonderful, like unusual kinds of aspects, right? About, can you see that?
Yes.
Is it scrolling as I scroll now?
Yeah. It must have just frozen before. It looks great now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I apologize, and I'm glad you chimed in there. So about us, again, this is our website. We've got again talking about the collaboration that we're trying to be able to do and the research that we're trying to do. There's also the team. If you're kind of curious about all of us as far as who the board of directors are, we're pretty much here. You can learn about us and who we are in greater detail from that by looking at that. And of course, there's Larry Cates, who's on this conference, as I told you about. So anyway, get up there. Are in the library area. If you take a look at the library area, you'll find out that this is where we post our papers. There's also like the Aguadilla video and some of the other video clips that we've actually analyzed, and even our newsletters that we put together are located up here, as well as other key documents that are coming. And so we've been trying to post and keep everybody informed about what's going on with us and all the latest and greatest documents. So by all means, if you get a chance to get up there, you can check that out and read our papers that we've got, as well as look at the videos on that we've studied. So I encourage you to get up there, check it out. There are project page up there, and there's a number of people that actually would like to be able to do a project or have an idea for a project. And certainly we can, try to help out with projects. We get a lot of people that want to be able to recommend ideas of where we can go and what we can do. But again, it's about bringing the right parties and players together. And then our conferences, we have a conference pretty much every year, except we couldn't do it last year because of COVID. And we had to cancel that one. But this year we had one in June, this year in June, it's the first weekend in June. We had the 2021 conference, and actually we did it completely, as basically a live stream, if you would. And we used a great tool that was a great conference tool that was really, really excellent. And we had 250 people and a good presence from people around the world that attended this conference. So our next conference next year, we're hoping to have both an in-person as well as a live stream kind of an event. So it'll be a hybrid, and you'll be able to come up to our website and be able to find out, when that is and when it's scheduled. This year we had, Dr. Hal Putoff, we had Matthew Shadegas, we had a whole host of other people that talked about everything. In our first year, 2019, we had a lot of it focused on propulsion because it was right outside of the gate of Redstone Arsenal. And of course, with the Marshall Space Flight Center, there, you're dealing with propulsion experts. So we're going to be having it again here in Huntsville, Alabama, and it'll be the first weekend in June of 2022. So hopefully, if you are interested, please do join us. There's also a contact page I was going to point out over here, where if you have an interest in contacting us, you can do that, as well as supporting us. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to switch out of this and go back over if I can, and maybe I'll have to do the stopping to share the screen again and switch back. Let me do that right now and bring that back up here. Let's see. Hang on 1 second. Well, let me see what's going on here. Okay, now I'm going to go to the share screen, and it should come up. For some odd reason, it was not showing up in the pick choice, and it's still not for some odd reason.
It's software.
Yeah, don't you love it? You want to be able to go over and to bring it up, and it's not, for some odd reason, showing up now when I want to be able to go and choose it for the share.
Oh, is this something that I could assist with from our end, or?
Well, you don't have, I don't think you have the presentation, but anyway, let me see if I can do this a second here again. And I apologize while we do this wonderful. Trying to switch out from my APEC slides here, and they are showing as open. Well, okay. Bottom line was, that was pretty much. Now I'm going to get out of this because that's pretty much it anyway. And why go about trying to put you through this painful thing? Anyway, that's for the most part who and what we're about. We're growing. I'm glad to see it. I can share with you that in my 57 years with this subject, starting at age 13, I had the pleasure of working with some of the people at Project Blue Book in Dayton, Ohio. So I was connected at that level. And now to be able to see that there's this governmental activity around the subject right now, it's pretty thrilling, if you would. But anyway, I'll shut up here for a second. Peter, did you have anything you'd like to add about SCU?
Well, you've given a very comprehensive background, far better than I could have, and I'm glad you did that. So, you know, I think everyone here probably has a pretty good idea of what we do. So, I mean, I can talk about myself.
Yeah.
Are you done, Rich?
I can be. You know, I know that I mentioned to Tim about the idea that you know, I know you got engaged and immediately jumped in on the Nimitz case. Of course, we could talk about the Aguadilla case as well and some of the things. I know that's.
Well, let me talk a little. Talk about
go right ahead.
a little bit. Yeah, I'm a latecomer to the SCU. I mean, I came in about 2018. My background is, you know, I was an electronics engineer. I have a master's in communication engineering, and I worked in Silicon Valley many years. But I'm a design engineer. You know, I have to design products, and so I'm now the director of products at product director for the SCU. I got that handed to me, you know, because. But I'm probably a fairly skeptical. I mean, I'm a pretty skeptical person. I'm kind of known for that in the SCU. But I've been interested in the subject for many years. I'm retired now. I live in Boise, Idaho, but I lived in California, of course, it's all my life, born and raised in San Francisco. And even as you know, through the years, I read books and became kind of convinced there was something to this. Although a lot of the, but I like to have facts and data. You know, being an engineer, to prove things, because and currently I still feel that way. I feel a large majority of the reports are natural phenomena or, you know, conventional objects misidentified and whatever. But there's a small subset of machines, you know, that are clearly, you know, clearly have properties and abilities that, you know, are, you know, we can't currently do. And so I came in about 20, I actually contacted MUFON because I don't know, something got me started thinking about this. I'm retired, you know, what do I do now? Well, I'm a photographer. You can see back here, that's one of my primary interests. I like to do photography. And, but, you know, I had some spare time. So I started looking into, you know, this subject. I've read a lot of books over the years, but you know, with the TV and all of the sensational things that are on TV and everything, I just didn't like the way the subject was treated. You know, I wanted to find some kind of scientific analysis of this thing. And you know, if you read a little bit into the subject, you know, back to the Condon report and those kind of things, it's been taboo for scientists and engineers or anybody who's involved in this subject on a professional basis to get involved, because it's career threatening. And pilots and airlines don't want to report it. The pilots could get, lose their jobs. The airlines are worried that people are going to stop flying as much. They're going to lose things because these things could be a hazard. I mean, they're flying around without lights, a lot of them, and there could be a collision. And, so that NARCAP, was involved in a lot of that. But it's been very difficult to get scientists. There's definitely a group of scientists that kind of investigate this on their own and talk to one another, but you can't get if you write a report currently, you can't get it published in any kind of journals or anything. They just, especially with the UFO community and the way it's been occurring, you can't get anything published. So I came in, I was searching after talking to MUFON. I just didn't think that the director I was talking to was scientifically based. And so that kind of discouraged me. So I gave up for a while. And then I came across a website that Robert Powell had put up about the SCU, and they said they were scientifically based. And so that attracted me. So I contacted him, and that led to my joining in 2018. And I worked on the SCU paper with him for about a year and a half. I mean, these papers take a long time. Robert is extraordinary in his detailed, he interviewed me. Okay, just as a background, the Tic Tac case, we were working on it a year before it even became public in the New York Times. And we had interviewed many of them, a subset of the pilots and people and the radar operators that were involved in this. And so we knew there was something to it. And we actually recorded their sessions and stuff. And, Robert and I started working on the actual writing of the paper and putting together a timeline of it. And I started doing some analysis on there's like three different events kind of reported in the whole constellation of stuff that went on in the report. And they all had extraordinary reports of of abilities that, people probably now pretty familiar with Tic Tac, the Tic Tac case, the Nimitz case, maybe not, depending on people here if they're interested in the UAP phenomena. But I worked on a lot of the appendices. The primary part of the report went through all of the backgrounds of the pilots and the people involved. A lot of FOIA reports were submitted to get, so that, and the provenance of the video was checked out. We thought it was valid. So we did a forensic report, and this is a little different in the sense that you're taking something that in the past, kind of like a criminal case, forensic of a crime. We went through all of the data and I did a lot of the math calculations in the appendices about accelerations and power requirements, assuming the object was 1 ton. And it was unbelievable. I mean, this thing is just, there's no way. So the way I approach these things is what I call the null hypothesis, which is you start out, and being a scientist, you start out with a hypothesis. And the hypothesis in this null hypothesis is that the object you're studying is no different than conventional objects. It's a misidentification. In our case, it would have to be an airplane or something, a drone or some kind of thing like that. And so we try to prove that. What we found out was that you can't prove it with that. The characteristics are such that there's no known technology that we have. And this was in 2004, even today, we don't have anything like that. that produces these kind of effects. And it's, you know, and of course now it's become very public, and once it gets on YouTube, then all kinds of stories start up. And UAPx was founded by, you know, the people that were involved in the Nimitz, much of the Nimitz case, and you know, Dr. Canute joined them later. And so the approach that we want to take is that, you know, taking data, and, you know, it's dull. I mean, it's not exciting to a lot of people. You know, we're not there with a lot of pictures and all kinds of stories about things that happen. We're just trying to, we don't know what these things are, but we know what they're not. And they're not something that we can currently produce, you know, and that makes them anomalous. You know, anomalous means, you know, anomalous comes from the Latin word for name, and A means not. It's not nameable, not understandable by our current technology. And so this, you know, like there's some very strange stuff going on out there, like the Aguadilla report, you know, that Rich worked on, of an object that, you know, it doesn't have any particular aerodynamic characteristics. It seems to fly along. It doesn't do anything extraordinary accelerations or anything like that, you know, but it's just weird. And it, you know, goes underwater, and you can see the water lifting above it as you go through the video, and then comes out and it splits in two. And, you know, very strange. And same with the Nimitz case, these things go, you know, travel at several thousand Gs in some of the reports. And in the video, we did an analysis using triangulation. You know, it's fairly simple math. I mean, this is not, I'm not a physicist, you know, I'm just using sort of you know, undergraduate level physics, you know, to do some basic stuff. But the fact that the physics is simple makes you wonder why somebody hasn't done this before. And there's all kinds of stories, you know, and people come up with, and if you just look into the analysis, you know, you'll see that they're not true. It can't be true, but nobody wants to look at it. And so, you know, that's, but it takes time. I mean, to do all this investigation. And so, you know, people are not that interested in, a lot of people just want to be entertained by it, like TV program or something. So that's kind of something we have to face. But my basic approach is that the SCU is not going to figure these things out, but we can get the scientific community to take this seriously, that these reports are real things and worthy of investigation. And they're, you know, that there's new science here. If we just learn something about this, and some of these I think are natural phenomena, some kind of plasma effects. The machines know, the machines have structure, you know, but some of these balls and stuff that do weird things probably are new physics and stuff. And, you know, science should be interested in new physics, but some scientists can't investigate this because of the stigma involved. And that's sad. I mean, that's not the way science is supposed to be. We should be looking at new things. And so that's my main motivation for this. You know, that's why I came into the program. And I think, you know, Rich has given a great overview of the SCU, and it shows that just with hard work and not a lot of publicity and trying to do things, that if you have quality, if you do things with quality, people will start respecting it. And that's kind of the approach that I take. So that's my background. We have, as a director, Rich has talked about the different projects we have. And so we don't generally, and those will all end up in reports that will become public. And some of them are technical, some less technical. And we look for new projects, but getting data is very difficult to get data. I mean, because well, a military has probably lots of data, but it's classified, and they are very strict. And even places like Homeland Security or FAA, those kind of things, they're in silos somewhere, but they won't release them because you need to. It's just not in the rules to do that. So that's kind of a big challenge we face on a day-to-day basis. And but we're hoping that as we get a reputation for being scientifically based, that people will trust us to remain, that we won't be, they can be confidential, provide us the data, and we'll do the analysis and then publish a report about it. Because, some of these people, people have had a close-up experience of a machine-like device. It shakes their life up. I mean, suddenly, they know it's not something, they know it's not something conventional. And even the nebulous things, very strange. I mean, it shakes your idea of what reality is. And so they want to tell somebody, but people laugh at them. They go try and tell somebody. Some of the pilots in like the Nimitz case mentioned it to just some other pilots, but they would sort of get made fun of. And it was only after it became public and that recently that, the Navy and the government is, Lou Elizondo, made this stuff available, these videos, and, it had to leave his career to do it. And, has helped make this progress to where it's now starting to crack the barrier, that to being investigating these things and not be so, dangerous to do it. And we're, we're seeing a little of that. I recently was in a conference with the AIAA, which is the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, who are concerned about flight safety from this perspective. And, they actually haven't really been able to do this because of the stigma associated with this. And so, there's a pilot, Ryan Graves, who, a Navy pilot, flew F-18s out over the thing and has seen these things. And he says they're very common out there. And he's very concerned about flight safety. I mean, you could run into one of these things because they don't, they're not, they have no lights, no communication, no anything. If you could run your plane into one of them. If they seem to try to avoid, contact. That seems to be, characteristics. But we don't know. We don't know what. We need to understand it better. And inform pilots. And pilots shouldn't have to worry about their career reporting these things. This is a fundamental freedom. We should be able to talk about these things. And so that's the kind of summarizes it for me, in my approach to how this thing is. But I do think we're making progress. It's slow, but I'm in for the long term as long as I can do it anyhow. I don't think this is going to be solved tomorrow, or any quick fixes like anything else, and I'm being an engineer, I'm used to working on projects that last a year and a half to get a product out, and it's a lot of work, a lot of detail, devil's in the details. And so I'll turn it over to Rich if you have any more.
I'd be happy to, I go for a few more minutes and stuff like that and telling you a little bit about, some of the things that I've been engaged in over my 57 years. I talked to you about investigating many thousands of cases. And so you talk about some of the things you were talking about in terms of like, objects radiating heat, and you're talking about objects that like, we tend to like, generalize to all UFO phenomena, if you would, or UAP phenomena, and we shouldn't do that. We just make assumptions that all craft are the same size. They're not. We assume that they have maybe the same propulsion systems. That may not be the case. You're talking about objects that are maybe the size of like a grapefruit, or you're talking about an object and some of these, are not natural phenomena, but more like even the disc-shaped objects. I had a pilot in 2013 that I was talking with that was leaving from the New Orleans, roughly in that area, and heading north, was coming up near Stennis Air Force Base, or the Stennis location where they do the test for all of the rockets we've got. And bottom line was, he's flying in a Cessna, and he's got an object that's 4 feet in diameter, that's silver, that's underneath his wing. And it's following right along with him at 254, miles per hour, maybe at about a 2,000 foot altitude. And it stayed with him for a little bit, and then decided to drop back, and you could have left it there, and he went up and turned around and came back, and he couldn't find it anymore. But had you left the case there, you would have missed the fact that we went to 6 different radar stations, FAA, and we managed to find the object being picked up on one tracking station that was in Alabama. And you could actually see his aircraft in position, and you could see that the object pulled back, like we talked about, and went from that 200 miles per hour speed, if you would, and dropped back to being 25 miles an hour. So what was that? So you've got objects that are even connecting to the side of aircraft. You've got objects that have been reported. You've got cases where you've got objects that people have got up and touched. There was no heat associated with them. You've got objects in the thermal ranges in many of the cases that we're starting to see now with these military grade kind of cameras, where it appears that they're like in the Aguadilla case, it kind of like was around 104 degrees, but it was shifting in terms of its heat that it was picking up on thermal, to where you're seeing some of these things are relatively cold in the thermal. If you take a look at the Go Fast video, you'll see that thing is white, and it's obviously colder than the ocean is. And so you'll get mixtures of heating. You'll get some objects that are giving off electromagnetic effects that affect, everything from people's cell phones to vehicles. Not as much with the vehicles anymore, but in the past, whatever that engine type we had with vehicles that was doing that. And you've got objects that are every shape. It seems like shape doesn't really matter. I mean, they can perform whether they're square, whether they're circular, whether they're a tic-tac shape, whether they're any kind of shape. I mean, we have dumbbell-shaped objects that are reported.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
it's just phenomenally weird,
Yeah,
and
so you look at the 5 observables, and you find out that the 5 observables are not a new thing related to the Nimitz. They've been going back since the 50s and the 40s. The same kinds of similar kind of maneuvers. Where it appears as though there's no effect in the atmosphere. Sometimes there is an effect in the atmosphere. So again, it's why we want to study these things and why we want to look at them. And the exciting time for us now is the fact that people are starting to get beyond the visible range of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're starting to get data from those types of things, the thermal range, ultraviolet, and a whole host of others. And I think that that's going to help us to get some sort of an understanding of the objects that we've really never had before.
I think anyway, that's an important thing, is that it's been the technological development of with common infrared cameras, and especially the targeting pods in the military can actually capture these things and track them now, which was really never possible before. Any kind of detail, and that has, that has made it much more sightings going on, than there were before, and become available. And so, that's what we need to do. I mean, as a civilian group, I think we're going to have to collect our own data, because I don't think the government is going to likely release much to us, because it's mostly classified, and they're worried that it'll give away secrets about their abilities and technology, and that's something we're looking at, about how to move forward with that. There's going to have to be wide coverage of this kind of data collection to do it.
We do know that there's a strong correlation between UAPs and nuclear. And so if you thought about it, you could create something called a honeypot, which basically lures whatever bees or various or these objects to the honeypot, if you would. And if you had that area located with, all kinds of, surveillance equipment and cameras and you name it, every kind of like equipment tool, you might be able to capture something. And that's something that's being explored both on the military side as well as in the commercial side, if you would, about utilizing that. And so we're also engaging UFO DAP, which is an organization, not an organization, but a product development by Ron Olch, who is developing these kind of like cameras and tools to be able to actually discern and distinguish objects, natural objects, from what may be unidentified. And you could position these tools and having feeding data to us, and we could set these up in key locations and then have them ship basically that data to us in STU to be able to study. So that's one potential idea that we're looking at for collecting our own data that Peter mentioned. At the same time, I'm aware of some breakthroughs and potentially getting some data that is coming from other sources that we might be able to look at. And Peter doesn't know about that yet because we haven't had a chance to talk to him about it. But that's something that might be happening, and we're excited about that. But anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is that we're hopeful that we can start to really put ourselves to work and to actually get things like maybe metamaterials and some other kinds of things to be able to study that will help advance our understanding. And with that, I guess it's about that question and answer time period. If you want to take it over, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so before I do that, I'm going to leave both of you gentlemen pinned. I have you pinned in Zoom. And I'm not super familiar with how that works, but I want to put it on gallery view. And everyone, let's give Rich and Peter an enormous hand. And gentlemen, I want to thank you both for your patience and perseverance and incredibly descriptive presentation on the SCU and your own backgrounds as well. Again, as I mentioned before, and as you pointed out, we've had several people from the SCU on, and just the quality of work and the depth of work that your organization is doing is just light years beyond anything else out there. And so that's why it is such an honor to have you both on to speak about this.